Jai Hind students, welcome back to the video lesson. We have done in the previous lecture about different modern farming techniques where we have learned about high yielding variety seeds, that is HYV seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, and about the irrigation of land, which includes the generation of electricity from the dams and using the pump sets to take out the water from the ground, and even the canal we are using the water for irrigation of the land, and also for the irrigation and for the cultivation of land we are using different farm machinery with the help of diesel, which helps it to run. We have discussed different modern techniques where we have seen that we have gone through and we headed towards the green revolution in our country. But can you see any adverse effect on the land also? Are you actually thought about this, that if we are using these pesticides which are having chemical composition in it, how it is affecting our lives and how it is affecting the lives of wild animals also, and whether the land is fertile for long period or not? Have you thought about it? I don't think that you have gone through it, so I am taking you to that insight. First of all, we will go through watch one video in which you learn that how this has a great and adverse impact on the land as well as the human life. So let's watch the video.
In 1845, Ireland's vast potato fields were struck by an invasive fungal disease that rapidly infested this staple crop. The effect was devastating. 1 million people died of famine, and over 1 million more were forced to leave Ireland. Nowadays, we avoid such agricultural catastrophes with the help of pesticides. Those are a range of man-made chemicals that control insects, unwanted weeds, funguses, rodents, and bacteria that may threaten our food supply. They've become an essential part of our food system. As populations have grown, monoculture, single-crop farming, has helped us feed people efficiently. But it's also left our food vulnerable to extensive attack by pests. In turn, we've become more dependent on pesticides. Today, we annually shower over 5 billion pounds of pesticides across the earth to control these unwanted visitors. The battle against pests, especially insects, has marked agriculture's long history. Records from thousands of years ago suggest that humans actively burned some of their crops after harvest to rid them of pests. There's even evidence from ancient times that we recruited other insects to help. In 300 AD, Chinese farmers specially bred ferocious predatory ants in orange orchards to protect the trees from other bugs. Later, as large-scale farming spread, we began sprinkling arsenic, lead, and copper treatments on crops. But these were incredibly toxic to humans as well. As our demand for more, safer produce increased, so did the need for effective chemicals that could control pests on a grander scale. This ushered in the era of chemical pesticides. In 1948, a Swiss chemist named Paul Hermann Müller was awarded a Nobel Prize for his discovery of dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane, also known as DDT. This new molecule had unparalleled power to control many insect species until the 1950s, when insects became resistant to it. Worse, the chemical actually drove dramatic declines in bird populations, poisoned water sources, and was eventually found to cause long-term health problems in humans. By 1972, DDT had been banned in the United States, and yet traces still linger in the environment today. Since then, chemists have been searching for alternatives. With each new wave of inventions, they've encountered the same obstacle: rapid species evolution. As pesticides destroy pest populations, they leave behind only the most resistant individuals. They then pass on their pesticide-resisting genes to the next generation. That's led to the rise of superbugs, such as the Colorado potato beetle, which is resistant to over 50 different insecticides. Another downside is that other bugs get caught in the crossfire. Some of these are helpful predators of plant pests, or vital pollinators, so erasing them from agriculture wipes out their benefits too. Pesticides have improved over time and are currently regulated by strict safety standards, but they still have the potential to pollute soil and water, impact wildlife, and even harm us. So considering all these risks, why do we continue using pesticides? Although they're imperfect, they currently may be our best bet against major agricultural disasters, not to mention mosquito-borne diseases. Today, scientists are on a quest for alternative pest control strategies that balance the demands of food production with environmental concerns. Nature has become a major source of inspiration, from natural plant and fungal chemicals that can repel or attract insects, to recruiting other insects as crop bodyguards. We're also turning to high-tech solutions, like drones. Programmed to fly over crops, these machines can use their sensors and GPS to carry out more targeted sprays that limit a pesticide's wider environmental impact. With a combination of biological understanding, environmental awareness, and improved technologies, we have a better chance of finding a holistic solution to pests. Chemical pesticides may never shake their controversial reputation, but with their help, we can ensure that agricultural catastrophes stay firmly in our past.
So yes, we have watched that so many effects are there with the use of pesticides and even fertilizers. So why we are using this? Because our population is growing day by day and we need high production. In order to give the supply of the crops, we need more production, and this production can be carried out with these modern farming methods only. Okay, so how we can sustain the land? If we are talking about the land sustainability, how we can sustain it, as this continuous use of groundwater for tubal irrigation has led to depletion of water table also, and also it is polluting the water table or groundwater with the help of fertilizers and even pesticides. So hence this has led to the infertility of the soils with the use of fertilizers as well. So how we can ensure the land which can be fertile for a long period of time? It is the only solution is that we can use the manure, or we can use less fertilizers and pesticides in our on our land. Okay, so yes, here is the small case about the chemical fertilizers which is given in your book. You can download the book from the link I have provided you. You can find it in your WhatsApp group, class group. So scroll up and find that link and download the NCERT economics textbook so that you can access the material more conveniently. So yes, here is written, chemical fertilizers provide minerals which dissolves in the water more quickly and available immediately to the plants. Hence it is soluble and dissolved in water very quickly, so it also get mixed in the groundwater very quickly. Okay, as it can escape from the soil and go back to the deeper land and mix with the groundwater, as well as it may get into the rivers and lakes, and hence it pollutes the water. Chemical fertilizers can also kill bacteria and other microbes, which is essential for the fertility of the soil as well. So these, as you see that as those bees are very important for our environment, hence with the use of pesticides and fertilizers, it has been killed by many times, and it has disturbed the whole wildlife. So this also actually is very harmful for the wildlife as well as for the environment and as well as for the human life. So the state which has the highest consumption of fertilizers or chemical fertilizer is Punjab. You must know that Punjab is the highest in using the chemical fertilizers. Okay, this continuous use of chemical fertilizers has led to degradation of health. You already seen in the video that how it has adverse and great effect upon the health of the soil as well as the wildlife and as well as the human life. Okay, so now Punjab farmers, what they are doing, they are using more and more chemical fertilizers and other inputs to achieve the same production level. It is not about the health, it is about the achievement of high produce. In order to produce high, they are using more and more chemical fertilizers and not taking care about the soil fertility as well as the health of the population as well as the imbalance in the environment and our wildlife. So this has taken us to the thinking that how we can sustain our land more we can say ecologically, and how we can use what kind of things can be used in order to lessen the implementation of these fertilizers and pesticides on our agriculture land. So next we will learn that how land is distributed between the farmers of Palampur. Here you can see, let's go to one picture where you can see the Palampur village and its distribution of cultivated land. Here you can see the land is distributed and there is unequal distribution. Yes, there is unequal distribution of land in the village Palampur. Okay, some has big land or large area of land, some has small plots, so some has medium plots. So why this actually happens, we will learn, and how it is actually distributed among the people, we will learn. In Palampur, about 1/3 of 450 families are landless. That is 150 families are Dalits and have low land for cultivation. We have already learned about lower caste which is residing in the village and lives in the corner of the village. They are scheduled caste and low caste people, so they don't have land. They are working under the large farmers. You must know. Of the remaining families who own, that is 300 out of 450, 240 families cultivate small plots of land less than 2 hectares in size. So those 150 families who don't have land, and other 240 families cultivate medium, or means we can say less than 2 hectares in size. Okay, and here you can see more than half of the area of the village covered by plots are quite large in size, and 60 families of medium. Here you can see 240 families out of 30 having the land less than 2 hectares in size, whereas 60 families or rest of the 60 families are of medium and large farmers who cultivate more than 2 hectares of land. And few of these 60 families, they actually acquire 10 hectares or more size or area of land. Okay, so we will learn, first of all we will go through one case study. In 1960, Gobind was a farmer with 2.25 hectares of largely unirrigated land. He has land, but it is not irrigated actually. So he took the help of his 3 sons to cultivate the land. Though they did not live very comfortably, though the family managed to feed itself with a little bit of extra income from one buffalo. They may be selling the milk of the buffalo nearby the area. So after his death, after the Gobind's death, the land is divided into 3 parts because he has 3 sons, which is equally divided among the 3 sons. Each one now has a plot of land that is only 0.75 hectare in size. Okay, even with improved irrigation and modern farming methods, Gobind's sons are not able to make a living from their land. They have to look for additional work during part of the year. Suppose these 3 lands, take these the whole area as one land, and after the Gobind said it has been divided into 3 parts, 0.5 hectares for each one. So how they find difficult to cultivate the land might be they don't have the those resources, or as then if they are not able to get that profit from the land or from the land produce, they will be looking for another livelihood, another work for part time. So this was a situation of the small farmers where there is unequal distribution of land in the village Palampur. Okay, so in this diagram you can see people or labor or farmers are doing work manually. Bullock is used to cultivate the land. Here farmers are using the modern farming machines or tractors, you can say, but here bullocks are used. This is modern farming techniques where pesticides are being sprinkled on these crops. Here you can see this person is throwing the seeds with the hands only. So these are some methods that actually people or farmers are in practice. So we will go through one activity. Dear student, I suggest you to kindly watch the video full so that you will get the assignment as well, and by making notes and by writing the notes in points, because as it is given in the paragraphs in the book itself, but I suggest you to make the notes in points only, because it will help you to understand the points in easy manner. So here is an activity where in the picture 1.5 you shade the cultivated by small farmers, or you can draw here this 1.5 picture. You can draw the small land. You can draw this picture in your notebook, and you can shade the area which is possessed or acquired by the small farmers. Okay, so this can be done with the help of colors or even with the help of pencil colors or crayons. Okay, you can draw the modern farming method techniques as well as traditional techniques also in your notebook. So next is, why do many families of farmers cultivate such small plots? Or you have to mention the reasons why they are working on small plots of land, whereas other people are having so large area of land. So you need to find out the reason behind it. Reason can be any. The land is divided among the brothers after their father's death, or they may sold the land for the finance or for the money or for the future investment. These can be the reasons. Okay, other reasons can be there, you can find out and you can write. And next is, the distribution of farmers in India and amount of land they cultivate is given in the following graph. The graph you have to make in this graph in your notebook or after writing the notes. Here you can see pink and red color. Pink color signifies marginal and small farmers, where red color signifies medium and large farmers. You already know that marginal and small farmers acquire less than 2 hectares of land, where medium and large farmers acquire more than 2 hectares of land. Marginal and small farmers cultivate 44.6% of land with the population of 85%. Okay, we will revert it back. Just listen carefully. Whereas this pink population contributes this 44.6, but medium and large farmers signifies red color, which cultivate 55.4% of land, but with 15% of farmers are doing this cultivation only. It means 15% of farmers, means number of farmers, 15% out of total is cultivating the 55.4% of land, because they have large area of land. Okay, that's why produces more and cultivation is more. But in the case of small farmers, 85% of population is there, but they are cultivating the land 44.6% only, because they have small plots. They don't have so much of large area. That's why their produces also very less. Okay, so this is the source where they have taken this stats and taken this data and figures. So these pie charts you have to draw in your notebook. Okay, you can convert into 44.6%. You know the formula how to convert the degrees into percentage, so you can convert it, or you can make this in a rough manner also. No need to go for so much specifications. Next is, would you agree that the distribution of cultivated land is unequal in Palampur? Yes, we have seen in the diagram also that it is unequal in Palampur, but how you can say that it is unequal in Palampur, and do you find this the same situation in the whole India also? How you can find, how you can say that, and just you have to explain that. It is not each and everyone is equal. Every person is possess or acquire land as per its financial position only. Okay. So yes, this is your activity for this lecture and for this lesson. You have to do this activity. I hope you are doing well at home. Dear student, if you find any difficulty, just feel free to ask any doubt and text me on my WhatsApp number. I have given you in your class group. So be safe, dear, be at home. Just do some kind of creative activity also. You can draw pictures, you can inculcate many diagrams by making notes or for making notes. So you can ask help from me anytime. So stay blessed, stay home. Thank you so much.